Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another Was It Work video. I know it's been a while, but I got a new one for you today. But it's not a current film, it's actually a film that came out a couple months ago, and that is Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom. So I didn't actually get around to seeing this film until actually just last night. So I know this is kind of a long one coming, but here we are, I'm gonna do it anyways. My thoughts of the film was that I thought it was a terrible film, and so I'm not even going to bother doing reviews of it, but I thought there was actually some kind of interesting themes in this film that I could talk about and deal with that actually kind of like lean towards the woke side of the aisle. So I thought it'd be nice to kind of explore that one and give you my thoughts on it and run it through my typical criteria. And so yeah, let's get started. Starting off, we have number one, racial diversity. So if anyone knows anything about Aquaman from the comics, he is a white blonde character. Whereas obviously here with Jason Momoa, he has a Hawaiian background, slightly ethnic, I guess, in that regard. But we are used to him, so I guess people don't really think of him as a woke casting, and he is kind of popular and kind of beloved, so no one really thinks of it like that. In terms of my own thoughts, yes, it is technically a race swap, but it's not that much of a race swap. They introduced him this way, and they've tried to keep, stick to what he is in the way they've introduced him. So they haven't tried to lean too much into his ethnicity other than kind of some of his Hawaiian roots, which is not really in the comics at all. So they've changed the character significantly, but I wouldn't say it's for woke reasons. I would say it was purely because, Jason Momoa was so popular and they loved him for this role, for better or worse, right? So I guess it kind of does lean towards, it is technically a race swap, but it doesn't feel as offensive a one, really. Or it doesn't really feel offensive at all to consider a race swap. As for the overall diversity of the film, there are obviously diverse castings here and there throughout it, but it does not come across in any way as being forced. And this is the key thing that I try to look at when I'm looking at the diversity of a film. Does it feel forced? Does it feel like there's initiative behind it, whether there is one or not, versus does it feel natural? I would say it feels perfectly natural in this film. Nothing really feels forced, like they're trying to push some sort of diversity agenda. It just feels very natural for the vision that they had, and so there is no issues there in that regard. And so for this criteria of racial diversity, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. Number two is LGBTQ representation. Just straight up, there is none in this film. All the people in this film are seemingly heterosexual. And I need to always make this point clear, is that even if there was homosexual characters in this film or people from the LGBTQ spectrum, it doesn't mean the film is inherently woke. It's how they are used in the film that is what determines its wokeness, at least according to my criteria. But in this instance, there is none to deal with, and so I'm just giving a straight up 0 out of 10 for LGBTQ representation. Number three is toxic masculinity / feminist messaging. So I was very curious about this one going into the film as to how they would handle it, because we've seen the trajectory of a lot of films these days, particularly superhero films, how they're trying to really deconstruct the male characters and uplift the female ones. And I was curious to see how they would do that here, what they would do with that one here. I guess maybe this film was kind of saved by the idea that Amber Heard was basically, everyone hates her now since they filmed this movie. To this point now, she has become basically universally hated, and so they really reduced her role in the film. And so I guess all they could do was, uplift their hero, being the male hero, and as they diminished her role in terms of her screen time. And so to talk about this a little bit further, I would say there is no real toxic masculinity in this film. All the males are presented the way they're meant to be presented. They're not torn down or anything like that. They are strong males, and they're doing what they're meant to do. As for the females, I would say for the most part, they are presented in feminine ways, which is great to see. There is some hints of that kind of strong female thing that they're trying to force in there, particularly with that councilwoman who kind of was vetoing everything that Aquaman was trying to push as king of Atlantis. So kind of some weird power dynamics they were showing in play there. That could be something straight out of the comics. I don't know the comics, but it's still, when you're talking about modern day, we're talking about 2024, you can't help but notice these sorts of things and how they're trying to just kind of usurp male characters using a female character. Happens more often than not these days, but it is very much kept to a minimum, I would say. For the most part, both men and women are presented pretty accurately. The one issue that I do have regarding this particular criteria in regards to this film is, and they did this with the first one, but I feel like they dialed up a lot more now, and it's a common trait throughout pretty much all superhero films now, and even other films, but the male characters are the only ones that get to be goofy and act like idiots and get to, at times, like some, this film, it didn't make any of them incompetent, but it made them like just be goofy and silly at times, whereas none of the female characters ever get to do such things in this film or in a lot of films these days. But I'm starting to notice this dynamic is that the woman is always the more stoic, centered, sort of rational one, and the man is kind of just a bumbling sort of idiot at times, even if he does come through at the end of the day, he's the one who always has to kind of have these sort of these vices, if you want to call them that, and just kind of acting silly all the time. So I can't help but notice these things. I don't consider that toxic masculinity, and I don't consider that particularly like feminism. It's just this weird sort of middle ground that kind of it's just a way of kind of diminishing the male characters, I would say, and trying to prop up female ones in this sort of inauthentic way. So yeah, that's all I can really talk about there. And so for this criteria, I'm going to give a 4 out of 10 for toxic masculinity / feminist messaging. Number 4 is traditions bad, progressivism good. This one I was actually pleasantly surprised by, because not only was there no like tearing down of traditions, they actually were upholding and sort of promoting them in a positive light. You have the royalty aspect of this film, which is, Aquaman is the king on the throne of Atlantis, and they don't diminish him as king here, or they don't try to convey the idea of being a king as being some sort of bad thing. They believe in that hierarchy, which is nice to see. Then you have the family aspect of this film, which is very much promoted positively. Even though they diminished Amber Heard's character significantly, she should be much more present as the mother of the baby that has a lot of screen time in this film. It almost feels at times like it's a single dad scenario with the way Aquaman is interacting with the baby, but they do mention here and there that the mother is still there. She is there. We're just not seeing her because we know why. But anyways, the family dynamic with his dad, a lot of respect and grace given to his dad and his mom and even his brother, who is evil, but they do show the reparation of that relationship, like repairing that and kind of coming together to work together to defeat a greater evil. So there's a lot of respect going around for all the kind of different facets of tradition, and that was nice to see, despite it being a bad movie in my opinion. But I guess that was kind of one of the themes that I thought they did kind of nicely. And so I'm just going to give an easy 0 out of 10 for traditions bad, progressivism good. Number 5 is anti-capitalism / pro-socialism. So regarding those two things, there is no reference to either in this film, just none at all. But what I will kind of tie into this criteria, because I feel it does need to be covered, and it's kind of the biggest part of the film, and it's a main aspect of the story and the plot, which is the issue of climate change, because it is a big plot device here that is triggering the events of this film, and that has to be dealt with. And throughout multiple times in this film, they allude to the fact that this new evil that is about to arise once again is really much due to very much due to the fact that climate change is causing the ice caps to melt. That's going to unleash them once again. So climate change is very much a big thing in this film, a big theme to deal with. Now, the question then comes is, does talking about climate change equal wokeness? I would say no, because obviously the majority of people in this world do believe in climate change to various degrees. Obviously there's people that deny it too. I'm not going to give my thoughts on that right now, but it's more to do, once again, it's how they handle the subject matter is what determines whether it is woke or not. And in this instance, they're not antagonizing anyone for climate change. They're just saying, oh, climate change is causing this, and we just got to deal with it. They didn't harp on it or bang on about it that it's like, oh, humans are bad, or this particular group in society that's denying climate change is bad. It doesn't deal with any of that. So I don't consider that aspect of the storyline to be inherently woke. It doesn't mesh with my criteria. Maybe someone else might consider it woke, and I'd be interested to see that argument. I'm open to that. But as far as I see it, it's just a story that involves climate change, but without the woke aspects of that ideology. And so I have to mention that here under this criteria, which doesn't really mention it in the title of the criteria, but nevertheless, it is a factor. And so I'm going to be kind here. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10 for anti-capitalism / pro-socialism. And so as we always do, we take the total of those 5 criteria, which in this instance equals 8, and we divide that by the 5 criteria, and that equals 1.6. And according to my scale, 1.6 equals not woke. Despite my negative thoughts on this film regarding the story, the acting, the CGI, everything basically, did not like this film whatsoever, it is kind of nice to see that it did not go down the woke rabbit hole. It very much is just a bad movie, and I can live with that. But it's nice to see that it very much did not only was not woke, but it did uphold some actually nice traditions and some beliefs in some things that used to kind of just be universal truths, but are kind of diminishing these days. But yeah, nice to see that it didn't go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, so can't really add much more than that. And so Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom is not woke. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it and some takeaways if you haven't seen this film yet, and if you're concerned about its potential wokeness. What I would say is you have nothing to fear in that regard, but do very much be aware, because it is not a good film whatsoever. It is pretty terrible. Even if you're just looking for a dumb action flick, this is not really it. It's kind of a very stupid film, and I did not find it entertaining at all, really. But yeah, not woke if that is what matters to you most. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any thoughts, post them in the comment section below. Like this video and my channel, I'd really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.